Hey, the Circle of Hope pastors are here. Ben, Julie. Julie's not here. Julie's in Greece.
Hey! Opa!
Ben, Rachel, and myself. And we come together to answer questions that people ask us. The question today is, what does it feel like to be forgiven by God? Now, the framework that I live in, I already consider myself forgiven by God. I think the act of forgiveness happened on the cross. I think that's the moment of forgiveness that occurred. But in our regular life, what does that feel like, Rachel?
Well, I had a moment early on in my 20s that I think was really part of my conversion, was feeling this deep forgiveness from God, this total acceptance and love, and it blew me away. Like I sat on the sidewalk in Center City and just felt this pure joy, and it keeps unlocking me. But I have to keep receiving it because I don't always feel it.
Were you like weak? Your knees were weak and you had to sit down or something like that, or you were just like chilling on the sidewalk like a skater kid?
No, like I think I like dropped to the sidewalk. Not like I was like, I don't know, passing out or something, but it just arrested me.
Wow.
Wow, that's powerful.
I mean, yeah, I guess for me, following Jesus was a lot about obedience and walking in his way. It was more of a decision. It wasn't like initially this like heart-rending kind of thing. So, but for me, like, like, what does forgiveness feel like? That's what the question is. Like, I don't know. When Rachel, you said that, it made me think like maybe I've had something like that where I just really felt it, but I think often I'm not that tuned into it, or it's like a hard thing to feel like that. Like that's an incredible gift that you got, to have that kind of rush of emotional connection to your forgiveness. I think that's one of the reasons why confession is such a big part of the New Testament. Confess your sins one to another, and you will be healed. That's James. There's something about the human connection, this love connection that we have with members of the body, where we're vulnerable with one another. And we're able to say, I sinned, I messed up, I participated in the darkness instead of the light, which I am made from. That doing that process for me has been more feely, because usually it's like I did the thing. Like I told the person I messed up, and I didn't, and it wasn't just me and God. And I really felt that. And a lot of the feelings were like, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. And then I did it. And there was this kind of sense of victory over my sin.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I have a similar experience, except the miracle, so to speak, happens when I can accept the forgiveness, because I kind of live in condemnation all the time. I live as a kind of self-loathing person, and so I have a tape in my head that continually tells me, you're not really forgiven, you're not really accepted even by God. And so my salvation comes when I can accept forgiveness. Accepting Jesus means accepting forgiveness and how Jesus sees me. I have to keep reminding myself of that all the time. And it's helpful, like Ben's saying, when a brother or a sister reminds me of that too. That way I don't have to just do it by myself, where I can actually receive and say, no, there is no condemnation in Jesus. I don't have to be condemned. I already feel terrible all the time. So I grew up, and every Sunday they had to tell you how terrible you were so you could be saved again, and that's a really hard thing to break out of. That's what it feels like when I can be free of that judgment. Go ahead, Rachel.
Well, I'm thinking my friends in recovery do this cool thing that helps them break out of that when they do step 5, which is this confession that Ben is talking about, and they try to write out everything they've done that they can think of, and then tell it to somebody in person. and it breaks those chains. That the telling to another human does something to break those chains of self-condemnation. And I think we're doing that all the time in the church, in cells, and in relationships as we feel safe to otherwise. And it can be really powerful to feel the forgiveness of somebody else. Then we can open to the possibility that God accepts us too.
Yeah, and I just want to tag on a suggestion for further reading would be the book of First John, a letter that John wrote to an early Christian community, and it works with this paradox of that Johnny's talking about, and you're nodding your head about, Rachel. It's like, am I actually forgiven? Okay, yeah, there's a story about Jesus and my forgiveness, but is it real? And and the evangelical or kind of mainstream Christianity that has majored on our sinfulness as part of its preaching has, we agree, has gone kind of overboard, and kind of focused too much on the one side of the letter of First John, that we are, anyone who says they're not a sinner is a liar, but it also says anyone who walks in the light is not a sinner.
That's right.
It's this paradox, and yeah, you actually discipline and doing it together, and receiving that forgiveness daily, and giving it practically. Jesus also makes a big deal about like giving forgiveness is how you receive forgiveness.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted about all the Bible stuff that we didn't talk about yet. But read First John. Read all of Jesus's parables about forgiveness and how important it is. It'll encourage you that there's actually a way to not just wait for the lightning bolt of forgiveness joy to hit you, but you could actually do something about it.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I think the more that we practice I think it's totally true. The more you practice forgiveness, the more that you can receive it. The more that you accept others, the more you can accept yourself. I think that's why we're organized as a body, so that we can actually share the love of God with each other. And you can't really accept the love of God unless you're doing it in a context, in a community. I obviously think this because I've organized my life to be in a church and to help lead a church. This is the landscape that kind of seed is planted. We're trying to cultivate that now. So being in the church is an opportunity to be accepted and to remember that you are accepted. So I hope that you seek out those opportunities too. Another question or a comment even about this, send it our way. We'd love to keep engaging and answering and responding to you. And if you know others that would like this video, send it to them. And let's make a community together right now, even online as we're able. We'll see you next time.